Will an avoidant ex come back? How can you tell? How can you tell that the person you dated, that the person you were in love with, will come back? Especially if they have an avoidant attachment style, because you feel they are clearly moved on, right? It seems that the breakup is so easy for them. Maybe you're in a situation where they took the decision to end the relationship and you don't see any signs of them changing their mind. In this video, I'm going to share with you the things you need to analyze, the things you need to assess should you want to get back with them. What characterizes an avoidant attachment style is the fear of dependence. I'm a former dismissive avoidant, and I think this idea of I need to be independent, I need to do things on my own, obviously clash with being in a relationship. There's also this idea of having a hard time when it comes to emotional intimacy, when it comes to being vulnerable. What happens is, as avoidant, you crave closeness. You want connection. Being attached to a primary attachment figure is an essential need. But it's clashing with being in a relationship, obviously. And so what happens is that if there's commitment, strong commitment, strong emotions, they might pull away because of that. So you have to assess whether this breakup is because of a clash of attachment or maybe around compatibility. Maybe it's about other things that sometimes can be the precursor of a breakup. What you have to understand is that avoidant can return. I help people daily getting back with avoidant. That's possible. It's not a question. I know why you doubt. I know why you're scared. Because avoidant, they can be very distant, cold. They can seem like they don't care. But trust me, if they cared about you, if they had feelings for you, that's not a question of, you shouldn't look at the signs or the things that they say or do right after a breakup. That's why it's also very important to understand about their attachment, understand about your attachment. Now, what you have to understand as well is that someone who pulls away, who disappears, who ghosts you, is not a reflection of your worth. Okay, I think there's something you need to remember here in this video is this. Yes, a relationship is kind of a contract, okay? I have some form of engagement towards you, we respect each other, etc., etc. This person decided to break that engagement. When I say engagement, not necessarily that you were married, but a form of engagement. But that doesn't mean that you're at fault. Sometimes it is, most of the time, when you're dealing with an avoidant, it's not. It's because of this deep-rooted fear of commitment. It's because they can't really handle emotional conversations. It's because they have difficulty with closeness, with intimacy. You have to assess whether they would have acted like this with someone else. Most of the time, when I speak with my clients and we do an assessment, this is what sort of transpires, is this idea that actually they would have done the same with someone else. So yes, if you have an anxious attachment style, there are things you can learn. There are things you can improve. If you feel that you don't have a secure attachment style, it's important to work at building a secure attachment style the same way I worked at being more secure. If you're not sure whether you should get back with your ex, if you're not sure whether this breakup is due to clash of attachment or lack of intimacy or compatibility, take the free assessment that is in the description. It's totally free. It will give you four sort of breaking down in 4 categories, depending on whether, I don't want to tell you whether you should get back with your ex or not, but at least giving you insights, because it's so confusing to date an avoidant and break up with an avoidant that I think I wanted to put together this assessment for you to get a bit of clarity on what to do next. So, few signs that your avoidant might return. They reach out after you go into contact. They seem to be curious about your life. Curiosity is usually the first element. You start to be curious because you start to be attracted to the person. So that doesn't mean that they're attracted, that they want to get back with you, but at least it's the first step. They express regret, nostalgia. They also, which is very important, you see an element of growth. You see an element of change in how they look at things. Right now, you're the one watching the video. Right now, you're the one trying to figure out the things you need to change in your life. What about them? Are they watching my videos? Probably not. Are they seeing a therapist? These are the things you need to assess. Not whether they're watching my videos, but if they're seeing a therapist, if they're seeking help, if they're actually trying to do something about this. Because sometimes they would tell you, I love you, but it's not working out. I love you, but it's too complicated. Okay, if they love you, if they told you those things, and we can assume that they didn't do it to manipulate you, and they don't do any kind of work to follow through, to fight for this relationship, it's actually not the right decision for you to get back together. They want to make things right. So again, when we break up with someone, you make assumptions. You make assumptions of, I'm going to be happier, things will be easier. Also accept assumptions on the ex. I'm going to break up with you because you can't do this or that. You can't be independent. And again, I don't want you to over-focus on the things you can change, but they make an assumption about you as well. So your behavior will also be quite important in how you deal with the breakup. If you continue to have to display your insecurities, to be clingy, needy, etc., you will reinforce this idea and create this anxious avoidant clash again and again. What you have to assess is not just the word. Of course, maybe you're very optimistic, and it's great to be optimistic. What you have to assess over time is the actions. Things need to change. Not in the words, because sometimes avoidant can be very good with words. What really matters is the actions, is how they treat you. That's very important. Now, the reason avoidants leave and return, it's important to learn that because I have cases sometimes where people break up and get back together, break up and get back together. So you need to break a form of pattern. So it could be overwhelmed by emotions, the fear of commitment versus the desire to connect. The thing is also, avoidants, they like what you provide in terms of security, what you provide in terms of emotional intelligence. That's why a lot of the time, avoidants are attracted by anxious people. Consciously, they don't choose you because you're anxious. It's very much unconscious, but you provide to them a sense of stability, of emotional maturity that they don't have. We usually are attracted to people who complement each other. And in a way, that's why you're potentially attracted to avoidant or people who have those avoidant tendencies. Maybe it's because of this element of familiarity. Maybe it's something that reminds you of how you were treated in the context of your relationships when you were younger. And maybe you admire this sense of independence, of drive, of being self-reliant because you don't have that. So again, it's really figuring out and understanding that there are sides of you that they appreciate, that they want to also use or leverage in the context of the relationship. Also, they could feel guilty, they could feel lonely. People think that, avoidant, they like being alone. No, avoidant, like everyone, they like to be in relationships. It's just that sometimes they need a bit of space. They need that, in order to reflect when they're stressed. The way they recharge their batteries is by being on their own. But that doesn't mean that it's their default position. What you also have to assess is getting back together doesn't mean necessarily that they've changed. Okay? And it's important to ensure and assess their self-awareness, whether they are growing as well. Because otherwise, if nothing changes on their part, there's no future in you with him or her. Because we won't go again the same pattern again and again. What I'm saying is, obviously attachment style is something that you can change and improve, but you have to do some form of work. That's what I do with my clients who are either avoidant or anxious, but you need to do a bit of work. The good thing about attachment styles and theory is that it doesn't take years of therapy to build a secure attachment style. In a few sessions, if you do, first of all, an assessment, a deep dive assessment session, and then work through your working models, in a couple of months, you have already enough tools to develop that secure attachment style. And then it's about being consistent and doing the work at home, your homework. You don't need a therapist 24/7 in order to do that. So what makes them stay away? Because perhaps that's the case. Perhaps that's the case for you right now. Sometimes they feel it's too soon to reconnect. So it's the idea of like when you go into contact, you have to wait a few weeks to ensure that they don't feel that pressure. Perhaps they feel that you're really happy and they're a bit scared of being rejected as well. The fact that they hurt you. And in the end, they know, I cared about you, I loved you, you loved me, and I'm ruining everything. I am the one responsible for your pain. And so for them, making that step, breaking the contact, getting in touch with you, it's kind of painful because maybe they have this desire to reconnect, but they don't trust themselves that they can follow through. And it's also because of this idea of things will be the same. So it's important to change the pattern. It's important to change the dynamic. Also, what keep people away or stuck in that silence mode when they're avoidant is around insecurities, around issues that they haven't resolved. So it's important, if they had traumas, insecurities, for them to work on those things. Now, it's not on the slide, but that's not your role to help them. They're adults. And even if you were together as partners, it's very tricky to have that role. And the thing is, with people who have an anxious attachment style, they tend to be a little bit, tend to use the role of a fixer in the relationship. And that's not healthy. That's not healthy for you because when you help people, you can't really help someone who you have feelings for. Because you're basically tangling all the emotions. You also act your role as someone who knows best. You can see it as a guide, but a judge, and it's very hard to be as well a relationship therapist and a partner. It's really, really, really dangerous to do that, and I would not recommend you to do that. If you want them to work on themselves, guide them, direct them to someone. You shouldn't be doing that yourself. And also, what's very important with therapy, it needs to come from them. Okay? They need to be motivated. They need to think, okay, I don't like the person I am right now and I want to improve. How can I do that? If you don't feel there's anything wrong with them, they're not going to change. That's very important. And obviously, if they're stuck at being, I need to be independent, I'm fine on my own, well, there's no incentive for them to change and break the contact or reach out. Now, can avoidant change? Yes, they can. So obviously, plenty of studies showing that attachment style can evolve with effort, with therapeutical support. This element of growth, if you want to support them, you have to be, as I said before, non-pushing partner. You shouldn't be the therapist. You shouldn't replace their therapist. You're just there to discuss what they are doing, but you shouldn't try to get that information. And as I said, it only works if they seek change. If they don't seek it, if they're not interested in that, you can't force them to do the work. Breakups, and that's why I'm specialized in this aspect in people's life. Breakups are usually the most powerful event where people do the work and start reflecting on who they are or what they want. Not only necessarily about relationship, but also who they are as a person. And I put together a whole course, if you're interested, have a look in the description, that I call Reconnect, to really make the most of this breakup, to really win this breakup. Not in the context of getting your ex back, because there are things that depend on your ex, and we have to be realistic. Some of it we won't be able to force them if they have this, they're stuck in their reality. But there are things you can do actively to learn about yourself, to learn about therapy, about relationships, to be better communicator, obviously, when you do this work, you maximize your chances of getting back together. Okay? If you don't do it, if you don't have the right approach, if you don't reflect properly on the relationship, you will make the same mistakes. And that's a guarantee that you're never going to get back together. So what to do if they reach out? And it's something actually that we cover a lot in the course, Reconnect. So have a look. Obviously, to stay calm. Don't rush things. There's always this idea of you have potentially a very clear idea of what you want, a clear idea of the end goal. They don't. So don't project exactly what you want right away, because for them, it's a process. Also, as part of navigating this process, it's important to establish boundaries at some stage, because you want to protect yourself. You don't want to end up in a relationship that is only one-sided again, and you want to make sure that you have guarantees around their progress and around their emotional maturity. Again, as I said before, words are fine, but what really matters is changes, is behaviors. Okay? And assessing, because I think that's the empowerment element of this, is it's not about them wanting to get back with you. Now it should be about you. What do you want? Do you want them back? Are you happy or satisfied with that level of progress that they've made? And throughout the process, being quite clear on your needs, you have to do that. You have to stack this and not go all in the first interactions, but gradually, organically reestablish that intimacy, reestablish those boundaries, and making sure along the way that you don't fall into those old patterns, right? Because it's very simple. We get back to something that feels familiar because it's easy, it's simple, but this is where we make mistakes because we fail to recognize that actually these are the same exact reasons we broke up in the first place. Now, the thing that you have to focus on is not whether they're going to reach out, it's not how long you should stay in the contact. What you have to focus on is things you can control, which is your growth. And if you're watching this video, it's because you are, at least you've done one step. It's like you're trying to figure out. And also, there's a change in terms of how you decide to read what's going on right now. The silence could be a form of emotional closure. If they decided not to talk to you, not to be mature with how they respond to the breakup, if they decide to use this form of communication, because silence is a form of communication, that also tells you a lot about the potential of the relationship, because sometimes people are very much attached to this potential. They make plans unconsciously about what ifs. What really matters is not the what ifs, but it's like what's going on now. Nobody forced them to be silent. Okay, they have many options, and perhaps, and I don't mind if you break the contact and you try to nudge them. What you have to assess is what's their behavior afterwards. It's important that moving forward and healing from this breakup is what comes first. Then getting back together could be an indirect outcome from this. And fair enough. The important element is when you create that space, when you go into contact, it's also a way for you to reflect and assess what could be a healthier relationship. And it's very hard to detach from this because your reality is I was in a relationship or I am in a relationship with this person. You have to let go of that because there are elements, even though maybe you didn't choose to break up with that person, there are elements from this that you need to deconstruct in order for you to reconstruct the right relationship, and that could be with them. But repairing a relationship takes two. And it's important to assess what's the level of investment. What are they doing in order to be more secure, in order to repair, in order to communicate more effectively, in order to meet your needs. Potentially, maybe, I don't know, maybe you just deserve better. When that person is treating you with silence, as I said, it could be, in a way, a clear sign about their limitation, about the potential. There's no potential. Only limitation here at this stage. And so It's really about reframing things around people who have secure attachment style, or have people who uplift you. Your partner, your ex, might never change. And we have to be at peace with that. But you can grow. You can decide today whether you be the person who suffers from this breakup, decides to stay stuck in the past, to dwell on the past, or the one who, like many other people, because it's possible, to learn from this breakup. The other day I had a chat with a former client, and she told me, we worked together for a few months, and last time I think we stopped coaching 2 years ago, and she told me that was recently, this breakup was the best thing that happened to me. Obviously, she was not saying that 2 years ago when we started working together. My only wish is that in 6 months' time, in a year's time, you could tell me the same about this. Because that's usually what happens. One way to make it better and less painful is to also be with people who would meet your needs, who would respect you. With partners who, have this emotional intelligence, and there are people out there who have this emotional intelligence if your ex or your partner can't give that to you. It's also important to assess whether the person you want to get back with or you want to build a relationship with meet you halfway. Because yes, you have anxious tendencies, and maybe he or she has avoidant tendencies. That doesn't really matter whether you're anxious and they're avoidant. What really matters is, what are you guys doing to ensure that you work on those things? Because you're not bounded by your insecurities, you're not bounded by your attachment style, and you can definitely work at building that healthy relationship. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll put, as I said, lots of things in the description for you to figure out what to do to help you out. Take care of yourself. I'll see you next time. Bye.